Have you ever thought about changing careers or why you're not happy or why you're not fulfilled in your career? Well, it only takes one simple step, and that step is a pause. Can't wait to talk to you about it.
Welcome to Women Leaders on the Move, a Her C-Suite radio podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Benamou, and every week I bring you inspirational stories and ideas to help you on the arc of your career and give you better fulfillment in your life. I am also the founder of Her C-Suite, a thriving network community of amazing leaders like my guest today who are engaging and meeting and thriving and hiring each other, doing business, recommending, referring, and creating an ecosystem of limitless opportunities inside our network community and on our app. I hope you will check it all out at hercsuite.com. I'm thrilled to be bringing you Marlo Lyons today. She is a career and executive team coach. She has had an incredible career and spent more than 20 years inspiring, motivating, and empowering people to excel in their careers and businesses. Marlo transitioned her own career from TV news reporter for more than a decade to entertainment lawyer to HR business partner in both entertainment technology and the medical technology industries. And now she works as an executive and team coach. She has human resources, career coaching, and leadership expertise combined with her own personal career transitions and experiences. And we discuss all of the details of her career and some really fun stories too. I cannot wait for you to hear this episode. And I have to give a shout out to my friend, Leslie Marbon, who introduced me to Marlo. It is such a gift to know both of you. So with that, let's get started now. Marlo, I am so excited to welcome you to Women Leaders on the Move. Thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me. So excited to be here.
Me too. This is going to be so fun. Listeners, get ready. You're going to have a great time listening to the show. So before we get started with all the things, I always like to ask a question, which is going to dovetail into what we're going to talk about today, career transitions. But you have had such an interesting, fascinating career. So talk to us about that, about the arc of your career.
Yeah, it's been crazy and wild, and I never thought it would be like this when I graduated college. I graduated college and I wanted to be a TV news reporter. So became a TV news reporter. I worked in 5 different cities and states. I worked in Oregon, Indiana, Ohio, Connecticut, and Oklahoma. So I worked in Oklahoma City. I did consumer investigative reporting and I loved it. And it was super interesting and every day was different. And I've been tornado chasing. So just a really interesting career. But I realized when the internet started, like this was not going to last. And this was all like right around when the internet was starting. And so, not starting, but when it was becoming commercialized. So then I decided that I was going to go to law school so that I had a backup. So I went to law school at night while working full time. And I would work from 8 to 5, be on the 5 o'clock show, the 4 o'clock show, 5 o'clock show with Consumer Reports, and then meet the live truck at 10 o'clock for a live shot on an investigative story. So I did that, graduated law school, moved to LA to be a screenwriter. I thought for sure Law and Order needed me, like they did. I was a writer and I was a lawyer now, going to be a lawyer. I was like, they need me. Well, guess what? They did not need me. And so I wrote screenplays for a while. I tried to produce screenplays. And I had this amazing deal with a venture fund, $9 million against a $90 million deal. We were going to close. I had a slate of films. I was going to produce them. I had my resignation in my drawer. And guess what happened? It was 2008. Everything crashed. And the venture firm went under. And I just cried. And so I didn't do that. So I worked at NBC and then at Viacom, and I was doing background checks, psych, and medical exams at NBC on our reality show participants. That's what I was doing as a lawyer. And then I moved to Viacom and I added on, I ran the production risk team there, and I added on immigration, foreign travel, child labor, safety, security, all things production risk that you can imagine. So everything from moving crews around the world to vetting all of your wonderful reality show participants. Think about The Real Housewives, The Apprentice, America's Got Talent, and then over at Viacom, Real World, Teen Mom, all sorts of things. That was really an interesting job until after 12 years, it was great coffee fodder where I could go have a great conversation at a cocktail party or have coffee with someone, but I was bored out of my mind. And so I wanted to do something different, but I didn't know what. And so I really honed in on my values and figured out I was going to move into HR. I loved helping people. I loved coaching people. And so I became certified in coaching in HR. And then I became an HR business partner. And I did that for about 4 years before I set off on my own as a career executive and team coach, because I realized in doing HR that I loved the coaching piece, the coaching the C-suite and the senior leaders and the executives, more so than actually the performance management and all those other pieces that come along with it.
And I have to give a shout out to Leslie Marbon, who is the
Yes.
amazing person that introduced us. One of my
She did. She did. I was her HR business partner.
Yeah,
Yes.
she's one of my favorite and dear friends and a founding member of her C-suite. She's one of the 11. She's
Awesome.
the originals is what I say, like before we even had her
Yes.
C-suite. So
Awesome. Yeah. And I loved working with her and her corporate team. It was awesome.
So I'm really fascinated about you got certified and did all these different careers. So you were TV journalist and were on TV, and then you became a lawyer. And then when you were going to be a coach, you got certified. There's a throughput of like education is important to you. This is what I'm sensing.
It
Like,
is. Yeah, I love to learn and I love to learn about people. And I think that's why coaching resonates so much for me. I mean, I hope I bring value obviously to my clients, but it resonates so much because I get to meet new people every day. And I get to, meet them without judgment, right? Like just meet them where they are, help them be the best they can be and what they want to do, help them achieve whatever career goals they have, but also like help them just pause for a minute and like focus on themselves. And I get to learn all about them in the process of that. And there's nothing better for me than connection and meeting other people and learning about their lives and their journeys and how they got to where they are now and where they want to be and why they want to be there. So whether it's reading a book or meeting people, I absolutely love learning. And I'm always reading something. I just downloaded about 7 books yesterday for summer vacation.
I love it. What's running through my mind when you're talking about this is that you bring such a wide range of abilities from mitigating risks, right? So you worked the crazy scenarios of
Oh,
risk
yes.
management. So as a leader, and I know we talk about boards and you're in our boards program,
Mhm.
but I'm thinking about like as a leader, the risk piece is real. And even though out in the world, there's all kinds of things happening, but in business, risk is real. So when you're coaching people, what does that come up ever when you're working with people about, okay, as you're evaluating these opportunities, make sure you're looking for the hidden traps or, stay within the guardrails.
Yeah, I think my background is super interesting for coaching, right? Because I've worked in corporate as a leader. I was a VP at Viacom, but then I've also worked in HR. So I've seen the whole other side of how business runs and how HR thinks and how they think about you as a leader. And so I think those two together gives me that really unique perspective. So when something is happening with a leader, whether they had a part of their job taken away, whether they have been put on a performance improvement plan, whether they're dealing with an employee who's not listening or not following direction or whatever the case may be, whether they need to advance their coaching skills, I bring this whole different lens to all of that most people don't because they haven't worked on both sides of the fence. You have a lot of people who are recruiters who become career coaches and become executive coaches, but recruiting and career coaching are very different, right? Recruiters are receiving the information. Career coaching is helping you be seen. And so recruiters do know what is interesting to them, but there's more to it than that, right? There's that culture fit, how they're going to blend with an organization, how to answer those questions. When it comes to executive coaching, it's really about being able to see inside the org and know what's really happening from a politics perspective and from the HR perspective. Because you'd be surprised how many people think, oh, I got this from my boss, but HR is not involved. Oh, yeah, they are. Right?
Oh yeah.
Or how
Oh
many
yeah.
times they get
Yes.
something from HR and they think their boss is not involved. Oh, yeah, they are. right? Like, and they just don't know the inner workings because nobody ever asks and nobody wants to delve into it. But I can see that. I can see what's going on and help them really hone into their intuition and not dismiss it. And I think that brings something, I think, an additional value that a lot of people don't have. And then also, of course, I have all the background in org design, change management, right? All those things that leaders need to do, but maybe don't have an experienced HR team to help them do it. And so in some cases, we do some consulting as well.
Women, especially today, and women over, I'm just going to mid-century, right? Women that have passed the first two halves of the lifespan.
First two quarters, yeah,
First two
exactly.
quarters,
Yeah.
right? They're in the third quarter.
I'm there.
Are getting exited in
Mm-hmm. They are.
in surprising ways. The
Mm-hmm.
brain drain seems to be not important to companies as much as it was, right? Like 3 years ago, the Great Resignation, companies were doing everything they could to retain their top talent. And now there is this quiet push to exit senior leaders. And of course, we're talking about women because that's who I
Mm-hmm.
work with, you work with, men
Mm-hmm.
and women. But I'm wondering, how can women protect themselves in that risk place? I'm going to stay in the risk piece of it because even if you have an ally, even if you have an executive sponsor, even if you've done those things, you can still get blindsided. So, what are some things that people can do?
Yeah. I think what executives need to realize is that when you use the word politics, you're not realizing that all that means is stakeholder alignment and stakeholder management. And 99.9% of your job is aligning and managing stakeholders. That means keeping people informed up, down, sideways, right? And also, it means managing them. So that means, are you sending those follow-up emails after the meeting? Are you keeping them informed as the project is progressing? It's not just, hey, you gave me something to do, or I'm working on something and I'm going to let you know when it's done. No, 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 no. It's every week, every other week, every 3 weeks. It's letting them know what's happening, where you are, where the roadblocks are, even as an executive. And unfortunately, I think too many people think that, when I get up to the top level, that, we're all going to be professional and we're all going to be nice to each other and we're all going to play well. And that's not what happens, because that's where the egos come in. If everybody wants a piece of something, or everybody wants to be involved in something, or they want their say. And that's the stakeholder alignment, right? You've got to give everybody a say. And if you decide to do something different than what they told you they'd like you to do, you better go manage that. And so that's the risk, right? That's why you're seeing people get pushed out. They call it not playing nice in the sandbox, right? Because you're caught up in the whirlwind around you and you don't know how to manage it. And so that's where you're seeing people, get kicked out. They're not managing their reputation. They're not managing other people. They're not looking at, hey, who are my quote enemies, or who am I going to have the most difficult time with, and building those relationships, right? Keep your enemies closer, right? And that's where you're finding that women are, and then women are just exhausted, right? Because they don't want, I think women mostly, we're direct. We just want to get it done. Like, we just want to go. And we don't want to play the game, but you got to play the game. It's a game.
Mm.
And you got to understand it is a game, and be okay with the fact that if you're going to work in corporate, you're going to be playing a game. How do you play the game, and how do you play it well?
Recently, I've been binge watching. I'm just going to, fully admit to all the listeners, Suits. I just discovered it's
I heard
8
it's great.
seasons. Guess what? You could just not stop watching this 8 season. But it's all about the relationship and communication and the behind the scenes
Yep.
and all the things that are happening, and
Everything.
the DJing of people and like making things happen. And that is really reality. It doesn't matter where you are in your career and what you're doing, there's always these relationship pieces. And sometimes it's hard to work with difficult people, I think. And how do you,
It is.
and especially on that show, I mean, there's one volatile person who just comes in and he's like, ah! And everyone is sitting there always looking
There's
like,
always one.
you know?
There's always one but they're great at the what. They're great at the what. That's why they still have a job, but they're just not good at the how, right? They
Oh,
make
that's
people
so
cry.
true. They're great at the what. So I'm
Yes.
imagining in your very interesting career that you might have come across some of those people that are like,
Ah, you mean like reality show participants? Absolutely.
how did you help the people on the receiving end of it, right?
Yeah.
Because they're like the star or the talent, they are that toxic person that is going to get away with it because they're the what, and they,
They're
come.
amazing. Yeah. They have the big personality, right? Like they're the ones that are going to bring viewers.
But on the
So,
receiving end, everyone's just like, what just happened? So,
yeah.
what did you tell the people around them?
You mean besides taking away real silverware and making them use plastic silverware when they wanted to stab each other during a lunch meeting? You mean that?
Oh, you have so many stories.
I think like in an office setting, right? Like when they're constantly the brunt of that, it's kind of like that. What's that old saying? Like, keep doing the same thing. That's the definition of insanity, right? And expecting a different result. Like, you've got to decide, what am I doing? This is what I tell people. It's not about what the other person's doing to you. You have to understand, what am I doing? Meaning, what are my actions? What are my reactions? Because that's all you control, your actions and your reactions. Is there any action I'm doing to create that? Am I not being transparent? Am I not keeping them informed? Am I not communicating clearly? Am I not aligning them before I go do something? Do they like to chat? This is a big one. Some people like to chat and have like small talk before jumping into business. And you might be walking in going, I have this, and this to cover today. And they're just like, what? Hello, right? Are you aligning with their communication style? So those are the actions. Then the reactions. Okay, so if they're going to blow up and be crazy and whatever, how are you reacting? Like, are you taking stock in yourself? Are you pausing to reflect and say, why is that triggering me? Why is what that person's doing bothering me so much? Is it because I care about what people think? Is it because that's my boss? Is it because I'm going to get a bad review and I'm not going to get a high enough raise? Like, what is the reaction you're having? What's inside your body? And how am I going to then fix that reaction? And how am I going to get better at the resilience from that reaction? So that's what people need to do, is they need to just focus on them and kind of figure out, like, what am I going to do to self-preserve in a way in that scenario? Because there's always going to be one jerk in an office. There just is. And especially if the culture allows it to persist.
What is one of your favorite outcomes that you've seen after a scenario like that? So, these things are existing around us, right? There's
Oh
like
yeah.
this ecosystem, but there's always some good that can come out of it, whether it's an enlightenment for the person, like you were describing, like what are my actions, reactions, right? Like, how good at poker am I at?
In the office, I have seen people finally decide that the office isn't the right setting for them, or that the job is not the right job for them, right? And that's aligning your values to your career and really understanding, wait a minute, I don't even like what I do. I don't even like who I'm with. These are not the interactions I want to have every day, right? And so that I have seen people completely change careers, completely change jobs, and align their lives with their values, because that's what brings us fulfillment, right? That's what brings us calm. That's what brings us peace. That's what brings us joy. It brings us everything. And so I have seen that. I have seen people get fired. And I have seen them in that moment when they are the person who is the, right? I have seen them go through a transformation of finally waking up and realizing that they have to take stock in their own actions. And I've seen that happen. And when that happens, and that happened to me, I'll tell you a very personal story. It happened to me. So when I was in Dayton, Ohio, I was recently unengaged. So I was engaged to a nice boy at the time. I was 26 years old, and I was unengaged. So I was sad, depressed, unhappy, whatever you want to call it. It would show up as anger. And I was working as a TV news reporter, and I opened my mouth one too many times and I got fired. I got fired. Right. And in that moment, I remembered thinking to myself, what did I do? What did I do? So I learned this lesson really young. I learned this at 26. Maybe that's not young to some people. Some people never learn it. They don't learn it till their 40s or 50s when they get fired. And I see it from HR. I used to see it all the time. But I learned it at 26. And that's how I learned all of this. Is I actually went, this was again before the internet, it was commercial, went to the library, and I took out books on anger management and sadness management and all of these things. And I learned how to get in tune with my body and to understand that when you're on the phone with customer service and you're angry and you're screaming at them, your temperature's up here. Why? It's customer service. It's something that doesn't work. Like, is that really, like, nobody's dying? So I took stock in every reaction that I was having and every action I was doing thereafter. And it got to a point that within a year, I no longer reacted that way. anymore. I was no longer, it wasn't just about the actual situation with the ex at the time. It was my overall, just the way I react to things and the way I engage with other people. And so the more you become self-aware of who you are and what you want and how you react and how you, it's emotional regulation more than anything, right? But how you react to things and how you process information, the more you can then become more the person you want to be. I don't want to be angry. I don't want to be sad, right? I wanted to be, because most people see me as optimistic and positive and happy, but I had this all boiling inside of me. And now I don't. And I haven't for, almost 30 years now. And so, but it took that moment. And I'll tell you, Natalie, I see it when people get fired. Some people wake up, some don't. Some are just unself-aware and they never will be. But some people who are self-aware, they wake up and they go, okay, I'm ready to finally do the hard work. And it is hard work. It is hard work to dig into who you are and who you want to be and what you want to be. And some people just don't want to be happy. They say they do, but they don't. They don't take actions to be happy or fulfilled. And some people will. And so the best thing I see is those who want to, and they truly take the steps and they fight for it.
For anyone listening that's wanting to make that change in their life, well, for whatever reason, it may not be that they, got exited, but it might be something in their life. What is one thing they could try today that might be, sometimes the goal is so big that you feel like I can never get started because it's like, I'm going to run the marathon tomorrow. It's like, well, no, you're just going to put on some running shoes today, like just do that.
Yeah, baby steps. Yeah, put on the shoes, see
Put
how
the
you
shoes
feel,
on and
jump up and
open the
down a
front
little.
door.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is to just sit down and pause. That's the number one thing. We're all saying, how are you? Busy. Really? Busy's not a how. Like, that's not how you are. That's a thing, right? We are human beings. You need to just stop and be. And that's the one thing people can do is they can literally pause, stop the brain, stop everything they're doing, stop multitasking, stop watching TVs, because people use TV to not have to think as well, right? Just stop and really think about what you want. What do I want? What do I need? Not what can I do? Those are different. What can I do is thinking about, all right, I have all these skills. What can I do? What do I want? Those are different. What do I need? What do I desire? What do I deserve? That's the number one thing they can do. When you start thinking about that, then you can say, all right, if I don't know what I want, let me look at my values. What's important to me? What's it, what gives me energy? What excites me? What drains my energy? What kind of interactions do I want to have? And what kind of environment do I want to be in? Those are the three questions. It's not that hard, right? Three questions, and really sit down and just journal, just write down. This isn't a thought thing. This is a write down thing. You won't remember it all otherwise. And just think about what, and then find that career that aligns with that. I mean, people always tell me, well, I don't want to take a step back. I don't want to go down in money. I don't want this. I went from being a lawyer to being an HR business partner, and I went up $80,000. It's positioning. It's not about you taking a new career and going down. It's how you position yourself and at what level. Just because you've never done it before, I can guarantee you probably have done pieces of it before in your other career. People just have to believe and not have limiting beliefs. So I gave you a whole bunch of things. One thing, stop, stop, pause, be intuitive, just think. People don't stop. I stop at least once a day, by the way. Once a day. Every single day. I stop and I take stock in where I'm at. And if I'm feeling tension, like what is that? And what am I not aligning with? I can give you a stupid example. I had a friend call me up and say, hey, can we go grab breakfast? I said, sure, let's go grab breakfast. We put it on the calendar. Next 3 days, just not comfortable. Like I'm frustrated. I'm like, why am I frustrated with this breakfast? You know why? Because I have a routine every morning. And my morning routine is that I like to go to the gym first thing in the morning, 5:30. I take my kids to school, camp, whatever. I come home and I sit in the infrared spa for a half hour. Then I shower, right? And then I do my writing, which is where my brain is fresh and I'm really creative. And then I take meetings starting at 11 in the morning. And this was interrupting my routine. And it was really frustrating me. And I thought to myself, why can't we do lunch? Called that person up and said, hey, do you mind if we move to lunch? Sure, no problem. All of a sudden, it just went away. If you stopped for a minute and really take stock in anything that's bothering you, I mean, really stop and not look at the symptoms, but look at the real thing, you will be able to solve it. Because it didn't align with my values, that breakfast, because that breakfast interrupted my quiet time, my time to think, my time to be creative. So you have to find the time, find the 5 minutes. It only takes 5 minutes, right? To really stop and pause and think and just say, okay, and hone in on that thing. So hopefully people can do that. Take the 5 minutes. You're worth it.
So good. Marlo, you know I could talk to you forever, and I get the benefit of getting to see you. So I get to have
I
other
love talking to you too. I could talk to you forever as well.
for people listening to the show. Where should they go to find you?
Yes, they can find me at www.marlolyonscoaching.com. They can find my book on Amazon or Audible if they want to learn about how to get a new career. Happy to do, calls with people, sample sessions, that kind of thing to see if it's a right fit. For executive coaching, I take very few clients because I want to make sure that I'm available for them, whenever they have an emergency, right? I don't want my whole day booked up so that I can be available and help them when they're in crisis or whatever they need in the moment. And trust me, these days, unfortunately, too many executives are in crisis.
They are. And for all of our Her C-Suite listeners, you can connect with Marlo inside Her C-Suite. And I love that you're in our community and doing amazing things. So thank you for being a valued member and for being on the show. It was so much fun. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. If you found this information helpful, I would be so honored if you would rate and review it on your favorite podcast app. If you are looking for an inclusive, welcoming, inspirational community of women with members like Marlo, I hope that you will look at all of our programs. If you aren't sure which one is right for you, reach out to me, schedule a call, and learn about how you can take ownership of your career and get started today. Marlo is in several of our masterminds, and she is making incredible impact in our community. Check it out at hercsuite.com. Keep shining your light bright. The world needs you.